The United States is currently in the midst of a record-breaking measles outbreak. And according to the latest data from the World Health Organization, about 92% of Americans were vaccinated for measles as of 2012. Now, your reaction is probably the same as mine was originally when I thought, well, 92% is a lot. So what's the problem? I don't understand that. That might sound like it's a good number, but that remaining 8% is really fucking things up. Because as Quartz points out, that doesn't stack up so well compared to other countries around the world. And unfortunately, it's not just like modern countries that are doing better than us. A lot of not modern countries are doing better than us when it comes to vaccinations. They say, quote, when it comes to measles vaccination, the U.S. ranks 38th out of the 52 countries defined as high income by the World Bank, and it falls behind several low-income nations such as Cambodia, Kenya, Rwanda, and Bangladesh. In fact, let me go ahead and show the chart here. For everybody that's listening live on the radio, I'll explain what's going on. Uzbekistan vaccinates 99% of the population. Then there's a few places that I can't even fucking pronounce the name of the country. I've never even heard of them. They vaccinate 99%. We have Kyrgyzstan, 98%. Tanzania, 97%, Rwanda, 97%, Vietnam, 96%, Bangladesh, 96%, Gambia, 95%, Tajikistan, 94%, Kenya, Cambodia, Burundi, 93%, and the United States of America is down there at 92%. So that's really sad, especially since the entire modern anti-vax movement was started by a study from 1998 from a guy named Dr. Andrew Wakefield. So he released these studies and said, look, I found a connection between the measles vaccination and autism. Keep in mind, this guy was found guilty of gross misconduct to the point where the medical journal that originally published his study, The Lancet, they took the study back in 2010. And they were like, whoops, our bad, this was totally wrong. So it turns out that Dr. Wakefield was being paid by a law firm that was suing the maker of the measles vaccine. So do you understand what happened here? This is very similar to like when ExxonMobil or BP or Chevron pays a scientist to do a study that says global warming isn't real. This guy had a financial incentive to come up with a bullshit study that said, oh, something's wrong with the measles vaccine, and oh, it's giving kids autism.
You may have heard vaccination causes autism in 1 out of 110 children. Fuck that. Total bullshit. It doesn't. But let's imagine it does. We'll compare two groups of children. Tell this group gets no vaccinations. My group does. I'll use this plexiglass to represent the vaccinations. Oh. That's bad. My vaccination wall knocked one of the children out of line. That's our 1 in 110 with autism. In the 1920s, before the diphtheria vaccination was common, there were 13 to 15,000 deaths a year from that disease. If you got it, your chances of dying were about 40%. In 1952, just before the Salk vaccine became common, there were about 58,000 cases of polio. If you get unlucky, you might end up permanently disabled or dead. Meningitis, hepatitis A and B, flu, mumps, whooping cough, pneumonia, rotavirus, rubella, smallpox, tetanus, chickenpox. Chickenpox. We have vaccinations against all of them. Which side do you want your child to stand on? So even if vaccination did cause autism, which it fucking doesn't, anti-vaccination would still be bullshit.
That about sums it up right there. And look, I want to be clear about something. I don't agree with Penn and Teller on everything. I know Penn is a very, very strong libertarian on pretty much every issue. So I don't agree with him on everything, but there are some issues where he's 100% right. This happens to be one of those issues. And we covered a study on the show recently where they found that 100 million lives have been saved because of vaccines. So my point here is, and The Daily Show did a great segment on this the other day too, that people on the left especially need to be better than that, because there's some vaccine denial on the right from conservatives, but a lot of it's happening on the left too. There's a lot of pseudoscience, unfortunately, on the left. As I'm sure you guys know, I'm of the belief that the left, by and large, is usually much more rational and much more correct than the right wing on a plethora of issues, almost all issues. But when it comes to vaccines, there is a strong segment of the population that thinks, oh, no, they're trying to get your kids, and it's bad, and the pharmaceutical companies are just in cahoots with the government, and they're trying to kill your kids or give them autism, and it's all for profit. Oh. No. You know how we always talk about a scientific consensus when it comes to global warming and climate change? It's the same thing with vaccines. The exact same thing. So any denial that vaccines work, you're part of that, the tiny percentage that's equal to the tiny percentage of scientists that say climate change isn't happening. You're just wrong if you believe that. And there's also other issues too, where like GMOs, for example. And that stems from a legitimate concern. Like people on the left they hate Monsanto rightfully, because Monsanto really is a fucking terrible and evil and bad company. I've seen the documentaries myself. I've read about it myself. I've covered the stories and the articles myself on the show. But stemming from the hatred of Monsanto comes this idea that all GMOs are going to give you cancer and kill you, and they're terrible and they should be banned. That's total horseshit, man, because GMOs, you actually need GMOs. You need GMOs to make sure that because of climate change, when we have drought and famine and all this terrible stuff happening, that we can tweak the genes of the different crops to make sure that they can grow in drought conditions. So on some level, GMOs are absolutely necessary. We absolutely need them at some point in the future. We're going to need them. And the idea that, just organic and natural is the best way, and not always, believe me. And there's a lot of scam artist shit going on in that movement too, like organic food, and alternative medicine is another one that unfortunately people on the left fall for, that this idea that, well, Western medicine is bad because pharmaceutical companies are involved. Well, yes and no. Sometimes they gouge you for profits, and the system isn't set up in the best way. I agree with you on that. But the studies are coming out of Columbia and Harvard and all these other places that say, no, these pills actually help with X, Y, or Z. So yes, Western medicine is correct. There is science to back up Western medicine. And alternative medicine, there's nothing to back it up. See, here's the bottom line about alternative medicine. If it worked, you wouldn't need to call it alternative medicine. You could just call it medicine. It would have had the peer-reviewed double-blind studies that prove that it's successful, and you wouldn't have to call it alternative.